Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Claddercast episode 19.
Hello, hello.
We've almost been going a year.
Is this the second one of 2017, or is it the third one? No, it's the third one. Jesus.
The third one? Yeah.
No, it's not. It's definitely the second one.
Shit, have I told him? Bollocks, there's a cat out of the bag there, isn't there?
I know you guys. You've been sneakily reporting podcasts without me, you bastards.
Yes, we have.
It wasn't really
It's just rude.
sneakily. We did invite you.
We even broadcast it.
I even listened to it.
What? Nah, don't, it's alright.
It wasn't as good without me. You guys don't have a waffle filter if I'm not there. There's no one to ring the bell and say, okay, next game, come on.
Yeah, I did actually notice that when we were recording. There was points when the two of us started talking. It's like, hang on, we got to rein this in. We've been going for 30 minutes on nonsense.
We should talk about some board games.
That's different to any other podcast. How?
So, speaking of board games...
Yeah, I hope you two have played some board games because due to my house move, I can't find anyone to play games with.
You hear that really, really faint noise? That's a really tiny violin.
Yeah, but I'm trying to run like a board game website and board game podcast here. It's a bit difficult when you don't play any bloody board games.
You could play with yourself.
Are you suggesting that your business empire doesn't have any contingency plans? And continuity?
Yes, if I was a business, I'd be stumped at this point.
Well, fortunately, John and I have been flying the flag, so you're okay.
Well, that's all right then.
We've got your back.
Cool. Well, one place I'm hoping where I can play lots of board games is Airecon.
Yes.
Looking
Well,
forward
if it's
to
anything
this.
like last year, we were playing lots.
Yes, hopefully. It's quite interesting, actually. I've seen a lot more board game like publishers and designers sign up this year, so we've already got quite a few requests to try and play some games, some demo games out, which is going to be quite interesting.
It seems, even just compared to the last one we're in, was it October, September last year, whenever it was, it does feel bigger this time. There seems to be a lot more interest in it. It just seems bigger, more talked about, like, I'm going to say more of a proper event, because that kind of degrades the last one, which was Ace, so I'm not going to say that. But it does
Maybe
feel...
part of it's that we're also looking out for it this time, whereas before, well, personally I hadn't heard of it before.
No, but still, there just seems to be a lot more chat on Facebook, and as Steve says, there's a lot more interest from names, and I think there's going to be more than one stall there. So, but then again, it is a bigger venue.
Yeah, it's a bigger venue, and it's going to be 3 days as opposed to 2, so it should be quite interesting to see what else is different about it. So it is on the, and I've already forgotten the dates now, so I have to look them up on my phone, aren't I?
10th to 12th of March?
10th and the 12th of March at the Harrogate International Centre in Harrogate.
And all three of us, with partners, will be there.
The Harrogate International Centre in Harrogate. As opposed to the one in what? Leeds?
Yeah, that's right, Andy.
Well, it's like, oh God, what's the name of the university? Warwick University. Have you been to Warwick University?
I have.
It's
not in
nowhere
Warwick.
near Warwick.
No,
yeah, it's
no.
in Coventry.
It is, yeah, it's true.
But you don't want to call it Coventry University because it doesn't sound anywhere near as nice as Warwick University, so...
Well, no, that's because Coventry's a shithole and Warwick's nice.
There is that, yeah.
Are we supposed to be talking about board games?
Yes, we are supposed to
Yeah,
talk
you're
about
right. Let's not get distracted.
Hang on, Andy's gotten us back on track.
Yeah, it won't happen again. Save this for posterity.
Even my being here is encouraging you.
Yeah, get rid of him. Kick him out.
So some board games then.
Yes, so a game I have played, and I know we've all played, and this is a Kickstarter that Mr. Lewis has picked up.
Yes.
Which is Cavern Tavern.
Yes. I've been, I'd say, itching to play it for quite some time, because I got it, oh God, when did I get it? Before Christmas, I think. I can't remember. There's a lot's happened in the last 6 weeks. Around Christmas, let's say that. And it is a dice placement, so worker placement with dice, from Final Frontier Games. So yes, it's I think it's actually the first Kickstarter I backed, actually. Although not the first Kickstarter I received. And it is a quaint little worker placement game that is based in a tavern in a cavern. Hence the name. That's good, that.
Yeah, I see what they've done there.
Yeah, genius, these boys, genius. But they've set their game in what they've called the Five Realms. And the Cavern Tavern itself is supposed to be the secret of the Five Realms. So I don't know if there's a troll at the door that you have to sort of knock on a big steel door. He opens a slit, looks through, and you give him the password or not. I don't know. With a dirty Cockney accent.
A troll with a Cockney accent? No.
Well, I don't know. Well, the orcs do, according to Elliot.
So how do you play this game then, Andy?
Oh, don't cut me short on my waffle. I'm setting the scene. But the idea is that you are a staff member in the Cavern Tavern, and you work for the boss, who's called Mr. Nasty. It's an interesting name, porn connotations notwithstanding. He's a grumpy old dwarf who runs the pub. And,
porn connotations only in your mind, Andy.
And now everybody else's.
Well...
And the idea
what does
is that you
Mr.
play,
Nasty conjure up for you exactly?
Don't ask. Some kind of greasy 70s porn star who slaps his thighs. I don't know. My mind is a dangerous place.
You're right. Okay, let's not go there. Sorry, back to the game.
I know we're marked as explicit on iTunes, but I think even we've got a level.
We've gone beyond Cage. That's too much. Okay, back on track. The base of the game is that you are a member of staff in the Cavern Tavern, and you are running around trying to fulfil clients' orders, and those orders consist of essentially cocktails. So you're working in a fantasy cocktail bar, essentially. And the premise of the game is that you put together a list of ingredients, after which you can fulfill an order and then move on and score a number of victory points based on the complexity of the order and how long it took you to fulfill it. So the game is set over 10 rounds. You acquire an order in the first round, and then it'll take you a number of rounds, or one round or whatever, to complete the first one, after which you get another order, and so on and so forth. You get punished a number of victory points for being late. The later you are, the fewer victory points you score, after which there's a certain limit, depending on the card, that you basically forget the order, and you suffer negative victory points, which is quite horrible and really quite damaging, so you don't want to do that. There are various ways to acquire the ingredients. You know, acquire them directly through the cellar by placing a die of a certain value or total of dice to the certain value, 1 to 6, and you get the ingredients straight away.
Yeah, so there's a series of different sections, aren't there, where you can place your dice?
Yeah, there's basically 5 areas to the board beyond the sort of the order area, so where the customers sit. You've got the standard cellar, which is numbered 1 to 6, and that represents the value of die or dice that you can get, that you can place. So each number has a certain number of spaces on it, depending on the number of players, and each space has potentially up to 2 ingredients on it, and you can pick which one you want. Or there's the kitchen, which has a lot of chores, and there's also a chores board, things like mopping the floor and cleaning the windows and all that sort of stuff. Those areas are higher value, so you need combinations of dice, so totals up to so from 7 to 18. So you add your dice together. They generally give you a number of victory points for doing the job as well, and reward you an ingredient, and sometimes give you an additional bonus as well, like the ability to steal an opponent's ingredient or swap or whatever. So you can put things down. You can enter the Wizard's Tower, which can give you a magic potion, which is essentially a joker, and some item cards as well, which can act as sort of special actions, or you can swap one ingredient for another, etc., etc. Or you can grass your opponents up to Mr. Nasty.
Hello. If I have to say, one bit of that game I like most, grassing... Was it you? I can't actually remember who it was I was grassing up now, but the important bit was... I obviously wasn't going to do very well myself, so my best way of doing well in the game was going to be to make sure everyone else did badly.
And it worked. You grassed up a lot of people, if I remember rightly.
It did work to a certain extent. I think I beat you by about 2 points or something, but it still didn't beat Mr. Tudor with his several million fulfilled orders and being in the good books generally.
No, I don't know how he managed to do that, actually.
I did have a stroke of luck when we actually got to Mr. Nasty as well, because when your nasty rating goes up a certain level, you have to pick a nasty card, don't you? which is basically what Mr. Nasty is going to do when he finally loses his temper and has a go at you. And mine was like, oh, he's so fuming that he does nothing. He just gives you an evil stare, and then you wander off and nothing happens. It was like, hey,
bastard! And at the same time, yes, and at the same time, he robbed one of my critical ingredients, setting me back 2 fucking turns, which completely annihilated my game.
Much to the amusement of myself and Steve.
Indeed, yes.
And that was actually my strategy. Because there was one of the abilities allowed you to grab ingredients, and another one allowed you to swap ingredients from other players. I think one allowed you to steal, one allowed you to swap. And I actually found that those were the 2 best spaces to go on, because it was you not only got extra points for going on those spaces because they're quite high number values, also put you up. I don't think you mentioned it earlier. There's 2 tracks. There's like a kitchen cleaning track and a
chores track.
Chores track, that's the one.
Yes.
And it also put you up them, and how further up you were on these chores tracks, the more points you got later on, like a little ratcheting mechanism as well.
Yeah, I thought that could work quite well, actually. So it give you an incentive to do these sort of higher end activities. Because as you say, if you got like 3 or 4 spaces down these essentially reputation tracks, you sweet talk the chef, as it were, you got bonus victory points. And if you got far enough along the track, you actually got to be able to modify your own dice as well. But I don't think I've ever got that far along those tracks, as it does require quite a bit of investment. I really like it. I think the artwork's kind of cool, and although it is a little brown in places, the board is quite dark, apart from the cartoony artwork, which is quite nice. But the designers are clearly trying to gear up for almost a setting, not actually too dissimilar to the way the FFG are doing the Android universe. These guys are setting up what's called the 5 Realms, because their next game is also set in the 5 Realms. So it looks like they're going to do a series of these things. I don't know much about the second game yet, but
okay, we don't know how strongly they're going to be linked then.
No, they're set in the same universe.
Right.
And from what I can remember off the top of my head, it's something to do with princesses and queens and things like that, but I can't remember exactly. Okay. But Cavern Tavern sort of set in this universe. It's basically sort of fantasy with trolls and elves and dwarves and things like that. So nothing too bold and new there. But it does seem to work. Although the game is not perfect.
What did you think of it, Steve?
Right. Well, I didn't like it. Now, when we played
Full
this...
stop, that's it.
Yeah. When we played this, I knew I'd have to explain myself on the podcast at a future point, because I think I said at the time, it's like, I'm not really enjoying this. So I've been racking my brains to try and work out what I didn't like about it.
Well, you did say, quote, I'm bored.
Yes. Which, let's be fair, that's the most important thing when you're playing a board game. If it's not any fun, what's the point? And its basic way in which it works, it's dice placement, which is similar to worker placement. The way you collect the ingredients and then have to hand them in to complete the drinks orders is very, very similar in style to Lords of Waterdeep. So Lords of Waterdeep, you are collecting heroes on that one. You need to get like 2 clerics, 2 wizards, a fighter, and then you go off and complete this quest to get victory points. The difference with Cavern Tavern was Cavern Tavern had this time limit, so you had to act quickly.
Yes, so there's a bit of pressure on you.
Yeah, and I kind of like that pressure because it meant that you had to plan ahead before you grabbed an order. But at the same time, it put me off getting the bigger orders.
Yeah.
Because I think, how many dice do you start off with? Is it 3?
4.
4. At most, you're going to get 4 ingredients, and the bigger orders required 7 or 8 ingredients. So even if you were lucky enough to get the dice to get all those ingredients in one turn, you're looking at either having to grab one of those orders later in the game when you've already got a bit of a stash going, or actually delay it for a couple of turns. So I started going for the smaller orders. The other thing that I found about it was, even though it's a dice placement game, so there's 2 ways in which dice work in board games. You either make a decision and then roll the dice, or roll the dice and then make a decision. So make a decision first is your classic kind of FFG, Warhammer kind of game. Right, I'm going to attack you, I'm going to roll to hit, that kind of thing, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense, yeah.
Euphoria is the other one, where you roll the dice and then decide when they're going to go. The problem I found was I didn't think the distributions were even enough on Cavern Tavern. So if you got a crappy dice roll, you were really humped for the round, I thought.
Yeah, that is a fair criticism. I mean, I can't disagree with you. I think the number, the 6 value, for example, in the cellar for the spirits and the liqueur, I think it is. Those 2 numbers, whilst statistically, I suppose, you're just as likely to get a 6 as a 1. They were also weighted 17 and 18 for the chores and the kitchen tracks, which obviously statistically makes them a lot less likely. And it's very, very rare you'd be able to get 3 6s or something like that to get your full 18 with your dice. So I think you're probably right. It does seem to weight the higher-ended ingredients with the higher-ended numbers, but there was no sort of less likelihood of getting the higher-ended ingredients in some of the orders. They just seem to have a higher-end ingredient, whether it was a low-numbered order or a high victory point order. So I can see your point. You're kind of screwed either way, which therefore means you don't go for those orders.
Yeah, and I also found that, I mean, as I said, that one where you stole ingredients and the one where you swapped ingredients, those 2 places on the board, which I think were like 16 and 17 or something like that. So they needed like reasonably high dice rolls in order to get.
Yeah.
But I found with them, I was getting like 2 ingredients around. So I was getting one I wanted that someone else had and the ingredient that was on that space.
Yeah.
Inconveniencing someone else, and I was getting victory points, and I was going up the chore track. It just seemed a bit of a no-brainer, which is
totally.
kind of why I was doubling your score at one point.
All right, Mr. Smug. Some of us didn't have the luckiest of dice rolls.
Which I think is the problem with the game, in that if it's got to try and decide where it wants to be, and I don't think it's kind of got its placement right, if that makes sense.
See, the thing is, I could argue against that. I mean, I can see where you're coming from. I don't disagree with you. But because you're getting so many rewards for such a high number, you're less likely to get those numbers, and therefore you should get a reward for the less likelihood of it. So in a way, it is balanced. I'm just not quite sure if the balance entirely works.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you rolled, 20 odd on 4 dice, and you rolled 4 on 4 dice, we were finding that if you...
Like Dan did the other night.
Yeah, you were finding you were completely stuck. You were at a turn where the only thing you could do was go to the wizard. And it was just kind of, somebody went to the wizard before you. You're like, well, where do I go now?
Yeah, we were talking about this last night, actually, just briefly after the our Tuesday night session. We didn't play Cavern Tavern last night. It was just more sort of discussion at the end that it feels like there should be a third option for each ingredient, because there's only 2. There's the one from the cellar and one from either the kitchen or the chores. And... you can roll your 4 dice and you'd get what appears to be a pretty nice spread of numbers, like a 1, a 3, a 5 and a 6, or a 4 and a 6, something like that. So you can make most numbers up, generally. But I do find that you can't necessarily make up the numbers you need. So if you can't make a 5 or a 9, but you can make an 8 or a 10, it's quite frustrating. So it's almost like there needs to be a third possibility for each ingredient to make it a bit more accessible. Maybe that's part of the fun, to make it deliberately restrictive, but I think nailing you on a worker placement game because of dumb luck is probably a little bit against the grain.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I quite often like games which have a reasonable amount of randomness in them, but it kind of felt like for that game, you ought to be planning, you ought to be putting together your strategy on how you're going to get these orders fulfilled. And you can do that to a certain extent, but because you're limited by what the dice give you, you then can't really plan except for what you've got on the dice. It's like Steve said. It feels like it's the wrong way round. So you've got to pick the thing first and then roll the dice, or vice versa. It just didn't feel like it worked quite well enough for me. So I constantly felt like I've got good ideas, and if I get these dice, I can do that. If I do get these dice, I can do that. If I do those ones over there, okay, that's not a great plan, but I can at least make it work. Roll the dice. No, I'm stuffed again.
Can't do any of those 3 strategies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I guess I'll just try and hurt the other players then.
It's a legitimate strategy.
Yeah, but you do still need to score points yourself.
I suppose that's where you can just start doing random chores. It's not ideal because you're basically spunking all your dice in one go that isn't necessarily going to get you an ingredient, but it does get you some VPs, which then offsets the drop you get for not completing in the same round, for example. So, I don't know. Yeah. I can see the criticisms, and I can't disagree with them.
And to be fair, that's just one game. And you could see that after 2 or 3 more games, probably, you'd start to get more of a feel for more of the strategy. So take my criticism with a pinch of salt.
I would also say that the style of game, it's not my normal kind of game. So I'm someone who played Euphoria and kind of way going meh. So
I don't feel very euphoric.
Yes, I quite like Euphoria as well. But
yeah, well, Euphoria is kind of seen as the kind of like A-star student in this class. It's a dice worker placement, and everyone raves about it. But I didn't think it's that exciting. So Cavern Tavern really had to do something really special to impress me anyway. So.
See, rather bizarrely, I think Cavern Tavern's actually more balanced than Euphoria in a lot of ways. Bizarrely. It's less punishing, certainly. But, yeah, I mean, I've obviously played Cavern Tavern quite a lot now. I've played 4, 5, 6 games of it with 2, 3, 4 players. And I do have more strategies now. I mean, I managed to beat the worker placement experts when we played in our Tuesday night session. Now, it might be down to random luck, because, as I say, Dan rolled 4 ones, and he was basically humped for an entire turn, much to our entertainment. There are strategies in it, and as John's touched on it, that you need to have sort of more than 1 or 2 options in your head that you could carry out. And I think, generally speaking, you kind of have to put together sort of 2 or 3 half strategies as you're going along. If you pick up a very big order that, you mentioned, Steve, that the really sort of high-end 28, 21 VPs, you basically just make your peace with the fact that you are not going to complete it in the same round unless you've got a bunch of spare ingredients knocking about, which is unlikely, but not impossible. So write off the fact that you're going to get the full whack. So you suffer a 7 VP loss for the next round, but then how do you make those back up? Well, okay, I can do a chore, I can do a kitchen job, I can do go to the Wizard's Tower and or grass you up to nasty or something and ruin somebody else's day. So there are options, but as I say, I can't disagree with your criticisms. I can see exactly where you're coming from. It's fair. And I actually have one of my own of the game, or rather, of the rule book. The rule book, the rule book is really badly written. Because it took us quite a while to find some specific rules in it, because they're not really particularly clear. I wouldn't say they're badly written.
It's not very well laid out, is it?
No, not at all. It's really difficult to find stuff in it. And there's one rule in there that's really badly worded.
Yeah, it's at the end of turn 1.
Yeah. But to Final Frontier Games' credit, during our game, I actually tweeted them and said, I'm playing the game, what's the ruling on this? What does it mean? And they got back to me literally within a single turn of our actual game. So I was basically live update rules in real time.
Now that is customer service.
Exactly. I have to say, kudos to the guys there. They've done really well here. And they said, no, actually, it ends at the end of your turn. The way they worded it as such is to basically stop anyone who hasn't got any dice from performing an action or a reaction.
Right. Yeah, just to explain, the way it's written in the rulebook is the rules said, if I remember correctly, as soon as the last player places their last dice, the round ends.
Immediately,
yeah.
Which caused some discussion.
Yeah, because one way of interpreting that was that as soon as you placed your last dice, you gained your ingredient, but then couldn't complete your order because the turn ended immediately.
But that's not the case.
That's not the case, which is kind of the spirit of the rules as we read.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. So, they have since released an FAQ and a rules clarification, which is available on the Kickstarter site. So, whilst the rulebook wasn't great to start with, they have written a lot of decent clarifications. And to be fair, a lot of the clarifications, in my mind, weren't actually necessary, because that's how I read the rules, apart from this one that got us talking. Discussioning, yes. To discussion. A new verb.
On discussions.
Yes. So, but obviously it's clearly caused some confusion elsewhere. So, whilst they didn't hit the nail on the head the first time with the rulebook, they have followed up very quickly. And so, as you say, John, I think their customer service has been great. They've been very attentive. And I am a fan.
I've got to admit, as I said, I'd be happy to play this again, I think. That kind of second play, will it introduce something that makes me change my mind? But at the moment, I could take it or leave it. I'd be interested to see what they got next, though, because the production values on it have been really nice. And as you said, they seem to be quite attentive and listening to people. So it's going to be interesting to see what else. What was it, Final Frontier, did you say they're called?
Yeah, Final Frontier Games.
Final Frontier Games. I'm going to be interested to see what they've got coming next.
I would say one thing. I know it did look very nice, but it was sometimes a little bit difficult to make out all of the symbols when you're trying to line up what ingredients you need for a particular recipe.
Yeah, there were a couple of kind of component choices and graphical choices I thought were a bit suboptimal, should we call them.
See, I'm just going to put that down to you two getting old and having crappy eyesight, but I don't see a problem with it myself.
It's because you had the board in front of you, you bastard.
Perhaps.
Yeah, some of the icons for the ingredients were quite difficult to read from a distance on the board, and especially on the orders because they were quite small. And I kind of got the feeling they'd chosen to colour code the ingredients halfway through because it would have been nice if those colour codings were on the cards as well.
Yeah, if it went all the way through, that would have made a big difference, I think.
You mean on the order cards?
Yeah, because the ingredient cards had a picture of the ingredient nice and big, the name of the ingredients, and then the bottom bar at the bottom of the ingredient card was a colour.
Yes.
Now, obviously, for you, that's not much use. But for us...
For us people with normal sight.
The Polyhedron Collider dog who can only see in black and white, yeah.
There's a good Andy.
Woof, woof. I want a biscuit now.
That sounds like a euphemism for something.
It was. But no, I can't disagree with your criticism. I mean, as I say, I've personally not found it a problem. Rather ironically, being the colourblind one, I didn't find it a problem. But again, it's probably not an unfair criticism. Maybe the icons need to be just a wee bit bigger on the board, certainly, so you can see them from distance.
Yeah, or maybe I need to just grow a bit.
Perhaps. Well, Steve saw it as well, but he's older than us, so his eyes are clearly screwed. So.
Well, yeah, I'm the only person here that wears glasses as well. So.
Well, you see, there you go. So don't worry, Final Frontier. It's just Steve. It's old man Tudor. But yes, I think that's. Oh, there is an expansion included with the game. I don't know whether that's going to be the non-Kickstarter version, but it is in the rulebook, so I'd imagine it probably is. And that's the Secret Chamber, which I have to admit I haven't actually used yet. But that introduces Mrs. Nasty, Mr. Nasty's wife.
She's in the secret chamber.
Oh yes, oh yeah.
Is this some sort of red room?
Don't go in there, boys. And you can use her apparently to gain additional ingredients, and you can use her to control Mr. Nasty as well. So it sounds fun.
Sounds wrong, is what it sounds.
There was an actual facepalm from John there.
We need to record the video for this in future podcasts. We'll work on that another time.
That was Cavern Tavern. A bit of a mixed response from us. Andy likes it. I could give or take it. John?
No, I'm with you. I want to play it a couple more times to be sure. I'm not just. I just haven't grasped enough of the complexity. But my gut feeling is I'm the same. It's probably not my kind of game.
Yeah,
that's you're both wrong.
Well, I'd be delighted to be proved wrong.
Excellent. I shall do that. Interestingly, actually, just while we're talking about that, Steve did raise a good point during the game that he saw the kitchen and the chores tasks as more attractive, which he has mentioned kind of in passing tonight, instead of the cellar, whereas I instinctively went for the cellar because you get one ingredient per one die. Whereas after that, so my second and third game, I actually started looking at the high dice value choices, and I think they are better in a way. So I think a mix of both is actually where I'm kind of at now, which I think is probably the way the game's supposed to work. So yeah, I definitely think you two need an additional playthrough. Yeah,
definitely. So before I talk about the next game, have either of you played SUPERHOT, the video game?
I've seen videos of it, but I've never actually played it myself.
I have to admit, I've never even heard of it.
Okay, right. This is going to be quite difficult to explain then.
I don't think it's that bad. The actual computer game, you mean, is you're basically looking at a sort of white shaded world. When you're not moving, time moves very, very slowly. So nothing changes in the game world. As soon as you move, the game speeds up to match your movement. So as long as you're not moving, nothing changes. If you, say, reach for a gun that's on the side, time speeds up. So you're kind of looking around to see what baddies are around, but as you look around, they're able to then move and try and attack you. And there's various black-shaded, red-shaded polygons coming towards you, these guys coming towards you. And you've got to try and pick up weapons, defend yourself against them, dodge the bullets they fire. It's almost like bullet time. And you basically got to progress through the rounds, moving around and judging where people are, how much you can move to even look at them, let alone pick up weapons and fire back. So it's quite an interesting concept.
Yeah, you can actually play a free version of it on the SUPERHOT website. So the full version, I think, is on Steam. It's about £10-15, I think. But there is I think it's a Unity web player version on the SUPERHOT website. So you can play like 3 or 4 levels. And it actually works really well. Anyway, I wanted to explain this because one of the few games, well, the only game I've played in like the last 3 weeks is SUPERHOT, the card game. Now, this is a demo version of a Kickstarter. It's on Kickstarter now as we record, and it's been on for about a week. So by the time the podcast comes out, it should have about a fortnight left.
Oh, I thought it had already finished. Oh, God. Okay.
No, it's still going, no.
Right then.
This is from our friends over in Poland at Board and Dice. And to be fair, I think they're the only people who are crazy enough to even attempt to make SUPERHOT into a card game.
Crazy is their middle name.
Yes. The way the game works is you have a central row of cards which represents the threat or the environment. And this starts off, this will be some baddies, some power-ups possibly, some environmental things like tables or statues that you can hide behind. And each card has 2 values on it. A value to defeat it and a value which that card gives you if it's in your hand. And you've got 2 currencies to deal with. Gunpowder, I think, which might actually be called threat, and dodge. So, for instance, if a baddie comes up in the line, you have to spend 5 points worth of threat to shoot him.
Okay.
If there's a bullet flying towards you, so there's a bullet in the line, I think you have to spend 2 dodge to dodge the bullet. The way in which this game is quite clever and just as much of a mindfuck as the video game is the way the cards get discarded. So as you play cards, they go to a discard pile, but as you remove cards from the centre line, they go into your hand. And then the number of cards you play, you discard that number of cards from the row. It's quite difficult to explain. Unless you've got the cards out in front of you, it's quite tricky. But what it means is the first couple of rounds, it's not a problem because what you're trying to do is avoid the threat. So all the cards will say if there's any of these cards left at the end of the round, an effect happens. So if there's a bad guy with a shotgun left at the end of the round, you get shot by the shotgun.
Okay.
Right, okay. Okay, that makes sense.
So what then you do is you add a number of bullet cards into the discard pile. Later on in the game, when you've shuffled through that discard pile, those bullets will be in the row. So let's say there's a bullet 3 cards from the end and I play 2 cards, that bullet will now move to the final spot because it'll move 2 cards along.
Yeah, okay, I see.
Okay. So
yes.
The more cards you play, the faster the row in the middle moves. And, of course, if a bullet gets to the end of the row, rather than going to the discard pile, it goes into your hand, which clogs up your hand. And if you have, at any time, got 4 bullets in your hand, you're dead and it's game over.
Okay, right.
So what this game really is like a miniature deck builder. Because the cards you're trying to remove from the centre then come into your hand. So you have to carefully manage which cards you want in your hand to try and mitigate the threat that's about to come up, because you can see like several cards down the row. But at the same time, you'll have an mission objective. So it's not just a case of surviving. You might have an objective that says kill 5 bad guys or cycle through the deck twice.
Yeah, okay.
So as you're playing, you're manipulating your hand to try and meet this objective. Once you've completed one objective, you draw 2 more objectives, reshuffle the decks and start again. So
is it in your interest to basically burn through the deck as quickly as possible?
That depends on the mission you've been given.
Oh, okay.
And as I found, this is kind of one of the problems with the game. I I'll get onto that in a second. But what happens the second round way through, you get 2 missions and then you get 3 missions. So the idea is to complete 6 missions in total, 1, then 2, then 3. The problem is, by the time you get like halfway through the game, so you're on the row with 3 missions, you've adjusted your hand to meet the first 2 missions and then find your hand cannot meet the last 3 missions.
Oh.
Okay.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. So you tend to think, like, immediately, you tend to think, right, well, I've got to do this I've got to get some dodge cards into my hand, and then later on you find you don't have any threat cards to kill the bad guys. So it's like when John was saying in the video game, you've got to go try and reach for that gun. Well, you've reached for the gun, but then find by reaching for the gun, you've used all your dodge ability, so a bullet hits you.
Yeah. Do you say this was single or multiplayer?
Right. The version I've got at the moment is a demo version that's just been sent out to people like us for talking about on podcasts like this. So what we've got is just a single player version.
People like us?
Yeah, people like us.
You make it sound like we're lepers or something.
Oh, podcasters, you moron.
Yes, I know what he means. It's just the way he said it. People like us, castaways.
I think it's just the way you hear it. What's in that gin and tonic, Andy?
Mostly gin, to be honest.
It's just not lighter fluid.
Yeah.
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it is flammable.
So the version we've got is just a single player version, but the final version that's on Kickstarter is going to have 2 and 3 player game modes.
Oh, that's awesome. So does that mean that you can affect other players?
I assume so, because I assume because they haven't shown the rules for the 2 and 3 player game, but they've got one of the pledges has got like a play mat, which all the cards slot into.
Okay.
And the play mat is the same for all versions, so this row of cards is still there. So it does look like, yeah, you'll be able to speed up time and screw up your opponent because a bullet's about to hit him in the face.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask, because I couldn't see how you could, like, who does it hit then? Because is it aimed at everyone at once, or?
I think so, yeah.
This sounds like fun. I like the sound of this. I might put something on Kickstarter, even though I'm supposed to be having a good month and not backing anything.
This is probably only a small thing, though, right?
John's having a dry February. I'm supposed to be having a Kickstarter-free February.
A cardboard-free February.
Yes.
It's not working, is it, Andy?
No.
Can't just go cold turkey. You've got to warm down to these things, Andy.
I've managed a week. It's okay.
Hi, my name's Andy, and it's been a week since I bought anything on Kickstarter. Oh, slipped.
I'm trying to remember when I started to back Tortuga, actually, and if it might have been February, in which case I kind of failed on the 1st or something. But
Haven't you just bought somebody's net runner collection on one of the Facebook groups just now?
Yeah. We don't talk about that.
That doesn't count because it's second hand.
No, exactly. That doesn't count. That's different. But yes, I have. It was a bargain.
You're basically saving yourself money, right?
Pretty much, actually. Yeah, I'm probably saving about 50 quid by spending 50 quid.
Yes. I've heard similar arguments about shoes and handbags before.
They're entirely valid.
Okay.
My handbag collection is amazing.
Yeah. So,
what were we talking about?
Sorry, rabbit hole.
that was super hot.
Yeah.
Sounds
I
good.
was about to say, one minor fault with it is that the first few rounds feel a bit like going through the motions depending on the mission you've selected. So, as an example, one of the missions is to shoot 2 bullets out of the air on a single round.
Are you the cat from Red Dwarf?
Yeah.
Fantastic. The Riviera Kid.
Ow!
Shot the bullets out of the goddamn air.
I am the Riviera Kid.
Oh dear.
Anyway, to do that, you have to burn through the deck once. You have to allow a couple of bullets to end up in the air and then burn through the deck once. So in the early game, it can feel a little bit like you're going through the motions, but by the time you get about halfway through the game, it starts to get a bit stressful because the number of bullets in the deck starts to get quite terrifying. So minor fault, really. But anyway, that's super hot. It's on Kickstarter right now. It's not expensive. I think €20 for the basic edition.
Well, that's not bad.
That's pretty good.
Don't
Although
tell
it's
me
getting
things like
rapidly
that.
more expensive.
That's kind of, warm down territory. God damn it.
The trick is, Andy, you've actually got to stop. Like, just saying that you're warming down by buying just smaller games and lots of them, it's not actually warming down.
Sure, shut up. It doesn't matter.
Indeed. Okay, so that was SUPERHOT.
So another quick starter I want to quickly mention is we played this about the same time we played Cavern Tavern, didn't we?
Same
we
evening,
played
in
Cavern
fact.
Tavern, then we played Elements. Yeah, same session.
So Elements is a dice rolling fighting game where you are, I think it's supposed to be druids, so it's like an elemental force, and you're rolling dice to beat the snot out of each other. Simply put.
I do love that phrase.
I love that phrase. I use it all the time is the problem.
It's almost a catchphrase.
So the basic gist of it is you've got several abilities, you've got a handful of dice with lots of different symbols on. Yahtzee style, you'll roll the dice, select a few, re-roll a few, select a few, re-roll, and then assign those dice to your different abilities. And the abilities change from the 4 different characters, so there's a different character for each of the 4 elements, and they generally form different kinds of attack, different kinds of defense, and different ways in which you can affect the defense and future attacks of your opponents.
And they each have a sort of special ability as well. So one of them has a greater shield, one of them has a greater attack, things like that.
So the other interesting thing is you also have the shield ability, which is you can lock dice in, which would then reduce the amount of damage you take from your opponents.
Yeah, they're sort of temporary hit points in essence.
Yeah. The other thing that's quite interesting, I'll use that in inverted commas, is your dice are your damage. So the more damage you take, you discard dice, and every one of the characters has an ability where if they roll, I think it's all of their own elemental symbol on the dice, they can bring dice back out of their kind of dead pool. So basically regain health.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest flaws in the game myself.
That's why I said interesting in inverted commas.
I was going to say, because the more dice you have, the harder it is. I mean, in a way, it kind of makes sense, because the more dice you have, the less likely you are to basically make sure that all of your dice have the same symbol. The problem is, trying to kill somebody, as John discovered to his consternation when it came to attacking Steve, was that Steve had 2 dice. All he needed to do was keep rolling one of the bastards until it matched. Instant
I think he got down
back.
to 1, in fact.
Exactly. So instant dice back. Then he rolled it again, got lucky, another die back. All of a sudden he was up to 5 dice and back in the game.
At which point I'd spent all of my useful dice, and I was just a bit like, well, what the fuck? I've just destroyed him, and then he's just back to full power.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit silly.
Yeah, I think the game was swingier than a Milton Keynes cul-de-sac.
Have you been sipping some of that gin?
I was going to say, have you been reading far too many of my reviews, Mr. Tudor?
I've been checking your reviews, yeah.
You have. You're jumping on the metaphor bandwagon. This is good. I will drag you to the dark side if it kills me.
Like a fly to shit.
Yeah, so it was a nice looking game. Some really nice dice, actually, I would say about it.
Yeah.
And the way some of the abilities worked was really nice. I mean, we played a 3-player game. The designer recommended to me it's balanced better with 4 players because you tended not to pick on people then. But I just found, like you've alluded to, once you got to a point where you thought you'd won, somebody could just roll some dice and get the health back and they were back in the game. And it was just, you had to completely destroy someone in a turn, basically. Otherwise, the game would carry on.
Yeah, and I mean, I like a good random game. Don't get me wrong, but it just felt a bit like, you couldn't control it enough. When you can come back from being that far down, you could just keep the game going forever. Just go round in circles.
Yeah, and another thing is, I mean, you two knocked me out pretty quickly for one reason or another. And as the person who got knocked out, no, well, that's fair enough. Not many people do. But as the person who got knocked out, it's kind of boring watch 2 people roll fucking dice for half an hour.
Especially when they won't die. Die, Tudor.
Exactly. At this point, I was on John's side. Fucking die, Tudor.
Just curl up. Stay down.
Now, there is a 2-player variant of this, which I haven't tried, so I don't know whether that works better. But I must admit, we were all a bit kind of unimpressed by the 3-player version.
Yes. Let's leave it at that diplomatic statement.
Yes. Before you go put your foot in it.
I don't know what you mean. Yeah, I think it's not for us.
No. So that's Elements. It's not on Kickstarter yet. It should be on very, very soon, and I'll be putting a written review up very soon as well.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, you're actually going to write a review? Bloody hell.
Yeah, it's going to not be very interesting for you to read, but there we go.
Well, he's got nothing else to do. He can't play any games.
That's true,
anymore.
actually. Yeah.
He doesn't want to play with himself. So he says.
Well, Arkham Horror LCG is calling me. That's a pretty damn good solo player game, so I think that's going to be coming out soon.
Is it the Call of Cthulhu? I'm here all night, folks.
Well,
unfortunately.
We have a question.
Delving into the question bag. Russell.
Indeed. Well, I say question bag, it's more of an envelope, but we have a question from Sebastian Clark, who is at Sebo6 on Twitter, and he has asked pre-orders or Kickstarter. Which do we prefer and why? And what is the best and worst Kickstarters that we've ever backed? So quite a lot of questions there, but it is basically Kickstarter versus pre-order stroke real life. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll start this one, shall I? I mean, I've only received 3 Kickstarters now. In fact, literally the third one I've received turned up today. So I've received Ave Roma, Cavern Tavern, and literally just today, Martians: A Story of Civilization, which presumably is going to be a kind of competitor to Colonizing Mars. Although I haven't played Colonizing Mars, so I don't know. But I think of the 2 I've played, I'm going to have to actually say Ave Roma is probably the better of the 2. They're both worker placement, or dice placement, and I think Ave Roma is much, much tighter of a game. And it's a lot more balanced as well.
It's not Ava Roma.
Ave, that's how it's pronounced in Latin.
He said it with confidence. It must be true.
I did Latin at school, but I did.
Look at you.
I had a classical education, chaps.
Oh, I didn't. I went to Tears Green Boys School. It was lovely.
Right, lad, I went to Castle Island in Wrexham.
You see what kind of degenerates I have to work with. I had a private education, classical, in a sandstone school. It was lovely. In Bolton.
It shows, Andy. Hang on a minute.
Was it ring fenced? Barbed wire around the edge of it.
It was not, actually. It was on the top 25 schools in the United Kingdom at the time. I don't know what it's like now.
I'm not arguing about the quality of the school. I'm saying, did it stick out like a sore thumb in Bolton?
It did. Well, no, because it was in the posh bit of Bolton, i.e. not in Bolton at all.
So it's like Warwick University we mentioned earlier.
Pretty much, yeah. It was kind of on the leafy suburbs, but anyway, it was a nice school. Anyway, yes, Ave Roma. So that's my kind of best Kickstarter, although I have quite a lot in the pipeline.
But going back to Kickstarter.
Yes. Whether any of the others are going to be amazing or not, time will tell. We're expecting Ominos this month. I think John and I have both backed that, and we've played it before, so we know it's good. So
that neatly brings me onto mine. I think the only board game I've ever pre-ordered or kickstarted is in fact Ominos. So I would say Kickstarter literally every time, because that's the only one I've ever done of either.
Absolutely.
Also, I've kind of given up on the whole Kickstartering and pre-ordering altogether, or indeed buying board games, because there's no point, because at least one of you two will have bought anything that I want to play.
That's fair enough.
You beat me to it every time. I'm like, right, this is the one, and I always find that Andy's already fucking backed it. I'm going to have something to talk about where I can be the one that bought the board game, and I'm really excited. No, Andy's got that one as well. Shit.
I'm watching it like a hawk. I have a problem. You notice that? Yes. I'm sat there shaking.
Yeah.
So I'm looking through my list of backed projects here now, and I have backed some dross. I really have.
This is the other side to Sebo's question now.
Yeah. Well, I'll get onto the pre-order stuff in a minute, because that's quite timely, the pre-order question is. But I'm just trying to think what's in the best and worst stuff. I mean, I've not backed a huge amount on Kickstarter. I've actually backed more on Kickstarter in the last 6 months than I think I've backed in the last 3 or 4 years. And that's partly due to Andy egging me on.
I was going to say, have I had something to do with that?
Yeah, oh, look at this one. Oh, it looks nice. Have you backed it? Oh, I wasn't going to. Oh, go on.
Totally, absolutely. You should do. You should support your board game community, Steve.
Well, I've always been the kind of person who waits until it comes out in retail in the past, so I've never really felt the need to kickstart. Now, I'm also quite risk averse, which is a bit of a problem when it comes to Kickstarter. So the first Kickstarters I backed were all quite cheap. You know, they're all about £10-15. So I'm just looking back at some of them. Oh God, I think the worst one I backed ended up being War Machine Tactics, which was actually a video game, but that's besides the point. It was a video game based in the War Machine universe. So War Machine tabletop miniatures game. And they made a XCOM-esque video game of War Machine.
Oh, right, okay.
The problem is, I've never actually been able to play it. It's so buggy, it requires so much processing power that every time I play it, it's like wading through syrup. So it could be a really good game, but from the reviews I've heard, I've not actually anyone sing its praises yet, so I'm a bit disappointed.
It might not be easy, but at least your bollocks taste nice afterwards.
What?
So I'm trying to think of the ones I've received. Dead Man's Draw was a really good Kickstarter. I think we played
It is
that.
Actually, yes, we have played. That's the Pirates one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the pirate one. We've got a match. It's like a set collection. I don't think John's played that one. I think
No.
Scott played it with us.
Yeah.
There's only one pirate dice game I played.
Lords of War was another great Kickstarter game. Unfortunately, that's now dead, but they did 3 versions on Kickstarter. Again, they're all about £10 each, so they were a really good little risk-averse thing. But I'm waiting for a few that I've actually played. So I've played Perfect Crime and waiting for that. We're looking forward to it. We've all played No Honor Among Thieves, which I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, we did like that.
That's one I definitely would have backed if you guys hadn't done it already.
And you liked Legends Untold, didn't you, Steve?
Yeah, I did. So I've
Yeah.
backed that one as well. That's come under a bit of controversy lately. Have you been watching that?
Yes, I have. It's you may suffer a few delays on that one, I reckon.
Yes.
What's wrong with it?
It's humped, basically.
I wouldn't go so far as say it's humped. There's been a little bit of a public argument between one of the artists on the project and the project manager.
Oh dear.
I don't know who's in the right, but it's basically saying the artist saying he was promised work and it never materialised, and then the project manager saying we never promised him and we've changed that direction.
Okay.
I think a number of toys have been ejected from prams and are now lying on the toy shop floor.
Yes. And as per usual, there's a pretty public spat over Facebook as well.
Of course.
Nice and professional then.
Yes.
Of course, absolutely.
Professionals all round.
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of stuff that I've already played and backed. I can't remember now.
I wanted to talk about the pre-order stuff actually, because he said the difference between pre-ordering and Kickstarter. Now, there's 2 kinds of pre-ordering as well, really. Here, there's the kind of thing where you know a game's going to come out. Let's say,
Doom and Adrenaline.
Yeah, okay, let's just say Doom. Fantasy Flight Games announced Doom. You go to either your local shop or go online and go, right, I'm going to buy that. I'm going to pre-order it now. It's due out in 2 months. I'll order it. It'll come when it arrives. Like I did with the Dunwich Legacy expansion for Arkham Horror. I just decided I'm getting that expansion. I'll order it now. It's going to arrive.
It's inheritable.
Yeah. So that's your kind of classic pre-ordering. But there's now this new kind of pre-ordering, which it's like self-owned Kickstarter. So Portal Games are just doing this now with their first Martians game.
Have you seen what's happened to them?
Yes, I'm just about to get onto that.
Okay.
So that works very, very similar to a Kickstarter where they say, right, the game's open to pre-order, you can order it directly from us, and then based on the number of pre-orders, we will do like Kickstarter stretch goals. So if there's lots of orders, we will up the component quality or add this, add A, add B, that kind of thing.
So essentially for this, you own the risk rather than the company.
Well, it's the same as a Kickstarter, really. You're paying them up front for a game they haven't finished developing yet.
Oh.
So it works exactly the same. It works exactly the same as Kickstarter. It's just not being run through Kickstarter.
Oh, right. So the company itself manages the...
So, yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, so the one with Portal is you order it directly from Portal's website, and then they pool all the money together and use that to develop the game. Exactly the same as a Kickstarter, except I think Kickstarter fees are in the order of like 10%.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you're basically they're just cutting out the Kickstarter fees.
So does that mean that pre-ordered games tend to end up being cheaper for the end customer compared to something you kickstart?
If you go that kind of pre-order Kickstarter one, yes, they tend to be a little bit cheaper. And the same with Kickstarter ones, actually. Kickstarter games tend to be a smidgen cheaper than the retail version.
And not only that, you get a little bit more for your money as well.
Yeah, quite often,
I think whilst the Kickstarters may not be grossly cheaper than the final RRP, I think they are better value for the extra stuff that you get. And of course, the limited edition stuff you get through back into Kickstarter. So whilst you might not...
And you tend to get it first.
Yeah, exactly.
In most cases.
History has told us that you are not guaranteed to get it before it gets into retail.
Really?
It's quite a common thing where, especially if there's a big convention coming up, so say UK Games Expo or Gen Con, and let's say this company gets the first 100 off the factory, on the pallet.
Taken to Gen Con, sell them to the public. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So people get, as John was about to say...
Quite miffed.
Yes. So people who backed it on Kickstarter, who believed they should get it first, get quite angry with them.
I think I'd be pretty angry if I'd put my money where my mouth was to back a project, and then someone just rocked up at Gen Con and got the same privilege of having one of the first ones. Yeah, I think I'd be pretty grumpy about that.
Yeah, I would agree.
See, I'm with the companies here. A lot of these companies have to do it to kind of for cash purposes. Because they've had the production run and they've spent all their cash making the production run, so I want to get a bit more cash back into the business. So I can see why they do it. I also think unless the Kickstarter says you're guaranteed to get it first, well...
I don't know. It seems a bit of an erect dick move, really.
What?
It just seems rude. I side with John here. You've never heard the term dick move before?
I don't think I want to be siding with you when you've got a...
But, I can see both sides of the argument. It's understandable from the business point of view that, yes, you want to keep your cash flow going. But at the same time, I think the principle of the thing more than anything else, that, you've got a bunch of backers who funded your company and funded the development of this thing.
Yeah.
They should be entitled to the first run. And if you've got any spares after that, then by all means flog them, but don't choose the general sort of Joe Schmo.
I got to admit, I think I would be a little bit annoyed if I found out, as you said, Joe Schmo had gone into a shop and bought the game before my Kickstarter version had arrived.
Yeah,
but absolutely,
I can understand why companies do it, especially when timing means it gets to Gen Con at just the time when the first boxes come out the factory.
So there are some Kickstarters that do sort of Gen Con or Essen exclusive releases. Not all of them are written, but that you can specify, right, I'll be at Essen, I'm going to pick up my box there.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And I think that's a nice option, actually.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Well, there's even a lot of games that are not Kickstarted. You tend to find they come out at Essen and Gen Con before they come out to the rest of the public anyway.
And that's not so bad, I don't think.
No, it can be a bit frustrating sometimes, but you're right. It's kind of the privilege of being there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You've paid your money to go and, wander around a big room full of sweaty nerds, then, your reward is you get a board game before everyone else.
So one of the interesting things that's actually come out today about pre-ordering is The First Martians, which is the Portal reworking of Robinson Crusoe. To be fair, this game actually does look pretty amazing. They have got into a spot of bother with PayPal.
Yes.
Now, this is not the first time I've heard of this problem. I've heard of video game companies having this, and I'm pretty sure I heard Gloomhaven had the same problem, which is basically PayPal's terms and conditions are once somebody pays you the money, you have to deliver the product within 20 days.
Okay.
So basically, PayPal is not suitable for Kickstarter-like pre-ordering systems. And what happens is, sometimes, and no one knows quite what triggers it, PayPal suddenly goes, well, you're not going to deliver it, we're going to take all that money away from you.
Yeah, they're kind of dicks like that. PayPal are pretty much judge and jury here. It's not good.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why PayPal has control over the goods, because essentially they're just a money laundering service.
No, they don't have control over the goods, but that's what I'm saying. That their stipulation is that it's there to buy goods, and if you don't deliver the goods within a certain amount of time, we'll take the money off you and refund the customer.
It's interesting, really, because you'd think, okay, if you use PayPal to buy goods, then I suppose there's an argument. But even then, if you're just using the service, all PayPal's used for is shifting money around. Surely it's up to the supplier and the customer to decide, well, hang on a minute, you've not sent me my shit in adequate time.
Well, this is what I don't understand, because why did PayPal kick this investigation off? Why did they suddenly decide, we're going to take all the money off you? Surely that would only happen if someone complained that they hadn't received their product yet.
Exactly. If somebody turned around and go, I've paid you 50 quid, where's my stuff? Then, take it up with PayPal. But if you're... I don't really understand why it's PayPal's job to police this, because surely if you're buying... it's basically PayPal's job to move the money around, ultimately. Whereas if you're buying goods from somebody, it's like you go into a shop and pay for something. I go to the supermarket and pay Morrison's for, a cabbage. I pay for a cabbage, I walk out the shop, I get the goods there. If I buy online, I still pay them using my bank account. Now, the bank is basically a facilitator. It moves money from my account to Morrison's account. And then the goods turn up 24 hours later in a truck or whatever it is, and I get my cabbage. So surely, in this case, you're using PayPal to shift money around. And if you've got a problem with the supplier, you take it up with them and say, look, it's been, 3 months or 6 months or whatever it is, where's my stuff? At which point, then maybe you can raise it with PayPal.
Yeah.
But it just seems a bit...
Let's be perfectly honest. PayPal was set up originally to support eBay. That's what it is.
Yeah,
it's eBay's
They're
pay
owned
system.
by eBay, aren't they?
Well, yeah. Did they not separate at some point? Yeah. So it's intrinsically linked with that form of buying something. So it's just the way PayPal have done business. Although I do feel sorry for Portal Games, this is not the first time PayPal have done this. They've done this at least 3 times a year for the last 5 years. So it's a known thing that happens. So unfortunately, some of the responsibility has to shift back to Portal Games for deciding to take PayPal payment.
Absolutely.
And PayPal was set up to protect the person who's paying money to something else.
Yeah.
So you as a customer who's buying a product or service, whatever it is, you're paying. Well, PayPal are taking a cut to provide that buyer with some protection, which makes customers then more likely to use your service or buy your product because they can buy with some confidence that their money's not just going to go into the ether.
Yeah. No, it does make sense, and I can see whether. But then again, as Steve points out, I think a lot of responsibility does rely with the games manufacturer in this case. That you read the T's and C's before you sign up to something.
Yes.
Jesus, you're running a business. For the love of Christ, understand your commercial T's and C's. If you sign a contract and you're bound by it, then you can't bloody complain if you haven't fucking read it.
That's a fair point.
Yep.
It's complicated.
Anyway,
though.
we have diverged completely away from the board games and Kickstarter yet again.
It's Sebastian's fault.
Sorry, I'm a bit off my game. I haven't been waving the stick hard enough.
I think it's just timing. I think it's just this came out about an hour before we started recording, so me and Andy have both spotted it on Facebook about the same time. So
yeah.
But to which you prefer, pre-orders or Kickstarter? I'm going to be perfectly honest with you now. I prefer pre-ordering from an established game company.
Really?
Yeah.
But you're risk averse, as you've said. You see, I fly by the seat of my pants. I quite like the Kickstarter idea.
Oh man, I've got a horrible image in my head now.
Well, I've got a gusset with wings, and I'm flying around Malvern.
Oh, it's got worse.
I just had this vision of you piloting a Millennium Falcon in nothing but white trolleys.
Oh, Well, yeah, I could do
I've
that.
got that
too.
music going through my head as well.
To be fair, it's more than Chewbacca wears.
Are you saying you're just as hairy?
Potentially.
Anyway, we
Expect a meme in the next few hours.
Anyway, we have gone completely off topic.
Not completely. We were asked about pre-orders versus Kickstarter, and they were related subjects. It doesn't answer Sebastian's question.
We just started talking about Chewbacca in his underpants.
Well, okay, maybe that bit, yeah.
Andy sometimes plays board games in his underpants, so it's not that far removed.
Sometimes. Oh, that's right, yeah, sometimes I play naked as well.
Oh, no. Right, and on that bombshell...
Can we answer Sebastian's question first, and then we'll close off this disaster?
Yes, we can. Well, you and
I don't care. They're both mechanisms. Get your board games how you like.
Very diplomatic response there, Mr. Cage.
As usual.
Get off the fence.
I like it up here.
So, yeah, well, there you go. One apiece and a no-score draw.
Standard.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening, everyone. Why you've stuck with us, I'm not entirely sure at this point.
Assuming anyone's made it this far.
I would say, actually, we've had a huge amount of new listeners over the last episode, so welcome aboard. Sorry.
Hi.
Thanks for listening.
And now we've just lost them again.
Surely not. Everyone's on the seat of their... No, hang on.
As per usual, you can find out more of our reviews and articles at www.polyhedroncollider.com.
Yes, you can talk to us on Twitter at Polyhedron Collider, at Sonic H, and at John_Cage.
We're on Facebook as well. Look us up. Google us. We're all over the place.
Yeah, just type a Polyhedron Collider into Google, you'll find us. Anyway, we will be back in 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. Sit with confidence, 2 weeks. So, thank you very much for listening. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Tatty bye.
Bye for now.
Good night.